champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all.
Welcome to Let's Start Justice. It is Monday, November 24. My name is Jade Williams. I'm the Policy Research and Advocacy Manager at Jamaicans for Justice. I am missing my usual co-host, Michael Jackson, this afternoon. She's a bit double booked for this week, so unfortunately she won't be able to join us. But we do have a packed show for today. We are looking at a two-topic show, speaking firstly, wrapping up our series or informal series that we've been doing on the impact of Hurricane Melissa. Today with focus on persons living with disabilities. And later on in the show, we will be talking about the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. So we'll be joined firstly by Dr. Christine Hendricks from the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, and then later by Attorney at Law Nastasia Robinson. And in all of that, we will also be talking about our Run for Rights, which is being staged this Sunday, but more details closer to the end of the show where that is concerned. Before we get into the major topics, though, we wanted to acknowledge the passing of Jamaican legend Jimmy Cliff, born the 30th of July 1944, and would have died today, November 24th, 2025. A Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee from 2010. He was a true cultural icon, a true patriot, and someone who has really contributed to Jamaica's international name. So we send our condolences to his family, and we thank him for his contribution to Jamaica's cultural legacy. Now we have for today a Right of the Week and a trivia question. Now we'll start with our Right of the Week, which is related to our topic for today. As we said, it's the impact of Hurricane Melissa on persons with disabilities. And today's right comes from the Disabilities Act, sections 24 and 25, which speak to protection from discrimination. So under these sections, a person with disabilities has the right to equal access to all privileges, benefits, opportunities, and treatment, including those provided by contracts and licenses, and they must not face any form of discrimination on the basis of their disability. So while we don't necessarily have constitutional protection from freedom from discrimination as it relates to disabilities, it is definitely there in our statute in the Disabilities Act. We also have a trivia question for today, which asks, what is the date? So that means day, month, year. What is the date that the Disabilities Act 2014 came into force, officially into force? So you can respond to that question by sending a WhatsApp at 2397583. You can respond in the YouTube chat on Nationwide's YouTube channel, or you can respond at our Instagram, JA for Justice. All right. So our major topic, as I said, is the impact of Hurricane Melissa on persons with disabilities. And in the weeks following Hurricane Melissa, we would have seen where persons with disabilities have been very much affected in their daily lives. Many individuals are still adjusting to changes in their living conditions, interruptions in their routines, and challenges in accessing services or support systems that they would normally rely on. Now, we've seen some news coverage, shelter managers speaking to the lack of specified services in parishes like Westmoreland, specialized caregivers for some of those displaced residents. There have also been reports of lost mobility aids and critical medication for this community. Now, as the recovery efforts from Hurricane Melissa have continued, the question is, what specific forms of assistance is needed to help those persons with disabilities regain their stability? And how can we look at our post-disaster recovery processes to ensure that they are overall more inclusive to persons living with disabilities? So to have this conversation, we are joined by, I hope we are already joined by her. Oh, she's not here as yet. Okay, so we will be joined by Dr. Christine Hendricks, who is the Executive Director for the Jamaica Council for Persons Living with Disabilities. So, it's something that we've seen some coverage of over the past few weeks coming out of the hurricane. We saw where there is destruction of not only the facilities that persons would normally go to, the areas that make those facilities accessible might also be damaged, as well as those, as I said, mobility aids. So we're talking about walkers, crutches, and any other additional equipment that persons with disabilities might need to make their daily lives navigatable. We've seen where those have been destroyed. Of course, in those parishes that have been harder hit, some of the reports that we're seeing would show that the homes that persons would have been living in, their personal homes, would have been destroyed or severely damaged, and so a lot of persons would remain in shelters where unfortunately they may not be getting the level of support that is necessary or that they would be accustomed to in the pre-storm time. So hopefully Dr. Hendricks will be able to shed some light on that when she joins us. I'm gonna assume that she still has not joined us. Okay. All right. So another thing that I said we would be talking about today as we wait on Dr. Hendricks to join us is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, IDVA, as we call it in the sector. And that kicks off the 16 days of activism. This year, we are observing the theme Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. That theme is one that is very close to JFJ, as we would have seen um, something that we've talked about quite frequently on the show, but many instances of unauthorized disclosure that could be weaponized as a form of violence against women in order to control them in these domestic violence or gender based violence relationships. So we see Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. And we are hoping to have a serious discussion about how not only unauthorized disclosure but other forms of online harassment, online stalking, the use of revenge porn, the use of sharing intimate conversations or images in retaliation, that kind of thing. How it can affect persons who are already experiencing violence, how it can be a form of violence, and what, if anything, can be done about those forms of violence in our law. I know it's something that we've really been working on at Jamaicans for Justice to see where we can have some legislative reform in certain areas to be more attentive towards those issues. So, as we consider the disabilities situation with Melissa, I know that the JCPD would have done some effort in speaking to persons living with disabilities prior to the storm as to steps that they could take to ensure that they would be better protected, to ensure that they would be safer throughout the storm. So I'd be curious to know how those efforts worked. What we do know is that the JCPD would have received more than 110 calls from individuals living with disabilities that are requiring assistance that would include evacuation, food, shelter, welfare checks. We saw a release from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security on the 3rd of November that would have spoken to how they are responding to these needs. The JCPD conducted, some on-site assessments in certain places, and we would have also seen where they have been working with the Jamaica Defense Force in order to respond to some of these needs. We are also, as I mentioned earlier, seeing some complaints about how the shelters, the condition of the shelters, or not even the condition of the shelters, but the availability of resources in these shelters, particularly as it relates to persons living with disabilities and the specialized needs that they may have. So, when we think about persons with living with disabilities, it's not just blind persons or deaf persons, but we see where they consider persons with certain chronic illnesses, certain persons with intellectual disabilities, outside of that physical disability realm, and the kind of specialized care that may be needed for those persons. So I'm still not seeing Dr. Hendricks. She's not with us yet. All right, so we're going to quickly go to the break and see if we can get Dr. Hendricks on.
It's Monday, get over your blues. Or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
The E-Zone is here for you.
With the Stinger Honey Bee.
And Karim Boyatings
From 3 to 5 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM.
We've got your entertainment news.
Then we want to hear your views. Why you say?
Jump in the mix.
Or the hot seat.
Don't miss our brain busters.
Or the crazy giveaways.
Let's talk fashion.
Send us your outfit of the day. Ooh, cutesy. Very demure.
Are you looking for love?
Come on one of our blind dates. Send your request to ezoneblindates@gmail.com. That's ezoneblindates@gmail.com.
And stay tuned for your confessions.
These are my confessions.
Share them with us at ezoneconfessions@yahoo.com. I mean, is this planet Earth?
Is it?
I don't know. Let me check. Either way, it's got a buzz.
And a bugger thing.
Ow! Ow!
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We've been discussing the effect of Hurricane Melissa on persons living with disabilities. I believe my guest is now here, Dr. Christine Hendricks, who is the Executive Director for the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. Dr. Hendricks?
Good afternoon. Is this Jade?
Yes, this is Jade.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. So while we were waiting to get you on, I was telling our listeners that the JCPD would have done some pre-storm advice to its beneficiaries. I wanted to know to what extent, what that advice was, and to what extent did you find that your beneficiaries took up that advice?
Well, good afternoon to your listeners. The pre-storm or pre-hurricane advice was preparatory, helping them to know how to prepare, what to put in place, what to ensure they protect, where to go for shelter, and if support was needed, how to reach out for that support. We also put our social workers or disability management officers on call, so they were aware where to call or where to send a message to in terms of WhatsApp or text message to ensure that they can be guided. What we found, similar to many Jamaicans and how we are, it was closer to the hurricane that the majority of the calls, messages, and so on were coming in regarding where do I find a shelter, I need help, how I need food, I need to be guided. And so guidance was provided, support by police or ODPM shelter managers were contacted, and so persons were assisted in those ways. For the calls that came while the storm was happening, there was nothing we could do at that time. And then now it is post hurricane assessment and support that is being provided, where we are now recognizing what has been lost and seeking to provide support.
Thanks so much for that. I'm wondering if you could give our listeners a better idea of, what the scale of loss that we're looking at is, and the ways in which the JCPD have been supporting the community since.
All right, so across the different parishes, the loss would amount. I can't give you a cost in terms of dollar figure, but persons would have lost entire crops. For those who were farmers or other areas of agriculture, they would have lost animals, they would have lost roofs, some would have lost houses, the entire structure in some instances. So they would have lost livelihood, they would have lost their homes. I understand that we had someone who had a disability who lost her life. We also have schools of special education that were totally destroyed. School for the deaf, the schools for persons with intellectual disabilities. Those who were were being facilitated in boarding situations for boarding schools. Their families would have suffered loss, and some of those boarding facilities would have been extensively damaged as well. And so the damage is both personal, extended family, and institutional. What the JCPD has been doing, we have separate from our care packages that we provided initially, as we went around or as we have been going around and doing our assessment, is coordinating the sector. So we pull all the disability agencies together. We also reached out to potential funding agencies internationally and locally, and we pull the sector together to have a coordinated approach to the relief and recovery efforts. And so we are seeking, or we have begun to match the needs of the different disability organizations to funding opportunities. And so where we would have had structural loss, assistive aids or assistive devices loss, or loss of livelihood, we would have reached out to the Ministry of Agriculture. We have reached out to Food for the Poor to let them know that we have persons who would have lost homes, and we will be approaching you on their behalf to ensure that funding, our homes are provided back. We are also intending to guide persons through the process of the social housing. For those who are NHT beneficiaries, guide them to the NHT process for building back. Similar to the institutions that would have lost infrastructure, the international partners, the diaspora support, and the local support through UNICEF. In particular, we will also be targeting 1,500 children for relief support initially, and then we are also looking at a medium-term facility of providing digital vouchers to families that has children with disabilities. And so we're building those out. Some of the touch points or some of the responses are building out to get to the recovery effort. Some is immediate opportunities, and some is also working through, because we recognize that while we will have a short-term response, there's also a medium-term and there will be a long-term
Yes.
response to get people up and functioning, as normal as is possible. We have also been speaking to the importance of, in the building back process, to ensure that, our architects or designers or construction persons and even the body that the government has set up, NARA, ensuring that in their building back, accessibility, universal design is front and center, ensuring that we're building back for everyone, not just for those who are able to climb stairs, but we are building back so everybody in our society, from the cradle to the grave, or from the cradle to the elder,
Yes.
can function independently as possible in the areas that we are building back.
Thanks so much for that. As you were talking, I one of our listeners commented quickly that a lot of persons, well, she said many, many persons are not registered,
True.
officially registered with the JCPD. Um, d- does that mean that you wouldn't be aware of them to provide this kind of support? And is there any kind of post-storm registration drive or any way to assist those persons who are not yet registered to get registered?
Definitely, definitely. So what we have found is, in the areas that we have been going, we have met several persons, or more than several, maybe hundreds of persons who have never heard about the JCPD.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are meeting already persons who never knew about us, and we have been encouraging them to register via our app, or I am able my JCPD app that they can download. For those who have internet and light, we have assisted them, as we have been going out, assisted them to download the app, by which means they can register. So persons with disabilities, if they do not know or have not yet been registered with the JCPD, can do so via our I am able my JCPD app. Just download it and it will take you through the process. There are videos on there that will guide persons, as to how to utilize it. We have tested it with our various communities, and it is pretty easy and accessible in its use right across the disability groups. The videos are also done using sign language, so the deaf community have been also accessing the registration by that means. And so we encourage persons to now register. Once they register, they will get the notifications on the app as to the next step. It also goes to the medical professional for that verification of the disability.
Mm-hmm.
And they get a notification along the journey, and they can also follow up on the app to see where their application is. And persons can also apply after registration, apply for benefits using the app. They can also make a complaint about discrimination utilizing the app as well. So it is multifunctional.
Mm-hmm.
And as I indicated, we're also building out a platform for, digital vouchers for our families utilizing the app as well. So several there are several uses of the app, and so we would encourage persons to download and utilize it. And so our initial relief effort is to everybody. However, there are some things that will require registration.
Right.
And so we encourage the registration to facilitate the more medium and long-term benefits.
All right. So I hope that our listeners that are unregistered are listening. And can you repeat the name of the app for me?
I Am Able, my JCPD app.
And this is on both iOS and Android.
It is on Android right now. We are working with the iOS team to ensure that we get it up and running on iOS as well.
All right, awesome. So I hope persons were listening to register to ensure that you can benefit from all of the work that JCPD is doing to assist in this recovery. I do have one final question for you. I kind of have two questions, but the major question I had was I recall you saying in another interview that we need to have a inclusive disaster recovery framework. What does that mean to you?
So from pre-disaster, from we are recognizing that we are in a zone where we are prone to various systems. It doesn't have to be a major hurricane like Melissa. It could be flooding. It could be anything that we're impacted by. Drought. The entire strategy. We have a national strategy, and yes, disability is represented there. However, the strategy is not fully inclusive, because inclusion is not just saying we have shelters that persons who use wheelchairs can get into them. It is more involved than that. And so even for us, we are working with our international partners to help us to frame that entire inclusive strategy, to say what will it require, what will this national strategy require to ensure that it is not just looking at the physical, entering the physical building, but what are the other things that would need to be part of the strategy to ensure that when persons turn up at a shelter, or when there is a major disaster, when there is drought, what is it that is in it for persons with disabilities? What is it that they would require? So it is a national effort, and not just JCPD ensuring that persons with disabilities recover after any major natural event. And so we are building our capacity as well internally to be able to guide what that process looks like. And so we are already in dialogue with our partners, UNESCO in this first instance, to bring in the experts to guide us through that process. It will be, as I said, a national effort, and so our disaster management systems and all the critical agencies would need to be part of such a framework and training thereafter.
All right. I think I had another question, but we are coming up on the break. So I'm just gonna ask you to give your last word to our listeners on this.
As Jamaica seeks to recover from Hurricane Melissa, there is a call that we are making to those who are providing relief as they go out into the different communities, that if they identify a person with a disability, we're also on the move of doing a people find. If they recognize a person with a disability in the area that they are providing the relief, to reach out to the JCPD, send us a message, a WhatsApp or a text message to 876-447-0444. So that's 876-447-0444, or 876-299-73. Help us to find, locate persons with disabilities, because they too could be displaced during this whole ordeal of the hurricane and everything else that has happened. And we also want to encourage those who are putting back structures together to ensure that the structures meet the universal design principles of everybody being able to utilize the spaces with minimal effort.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hendricks. That was Dr. Christine Hendricks, Executive Director of the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. We'll take the break.
If it's in the public's interest, it's the nation's business during Nationwide at 5. The nation's business.
Are you ready to turn your sales and marketing skills into high earnings? Nationwide 90 FM is searching for business development executives to help us grow our business and build lasting client relationships. If you have experience across all stages of the sales cycle and possess strong communication, negotiation, and time management skills with a proven sales track record, this opportunity is perfect for you. Join our team and work with the top corporate brands, media agencies, and of course, our on-air personalities. Enjoy networking opportunities, professional growth, and competitive commissions. Ready to take the next step? Send your resume to hr@nationwidenewsnetwork.com today.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. So we just discussed the effect of Hurricane Melissa on persons living with disabilities, and we are now switching gears into our second topic. We're going to be discussing the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. We mentioned this in our introduction earlier, but that day kicks off the 16 days of activism. It is tomorrow, November 25th. And it is being observed under the theme Unite to End Digital Violence Against Women and Girls. The theme highlights how online spaces have become arenas for harassment, non-consensual image sharing, doxing, trolling, and other forms of online digital abuse that disproportionately affect women and marginalized groups. Now, JFJ has been speaking to a particular issue in digital violence, that is unauthorized disclosure of HIV status online, and how those breaches of privacy help to continue stigmatization of persons living with HIV. So to talk about this topic, we have with us attorney at law Nastasia Robinson. Nastasia, thanks for joining me.
Hi Jay, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So for our listeners, what when we say digital violence in the context of gender-based violence, what exactly are we talking about here? How does this differ from what we consider to be quote-unquote traditional violence?
Thanks for that, Jade. Digital violence and what we found is the habit or practice of persons to, as you mentioned earlier, dox persons online, or in layman's terms, to reveal certain personal information about others online, whether it might be through social media groups, on social media platforms, through WhatsApp broadcasts, WhatsApp messages. So there are different ways that people are using the internet to release information, private information of persons. And what that typically results in is the public or a subset of the public becoming aware of this very private information relating to an individual. And in response to becoming aware of this information about individuals, uh, where people who become aware of this information tend to perpetuate certain emotional or verbal violence against the person whose information was revealed. Um, and we also have the resulting effect of the emotional and mental toll that this takes on the person whose information was revealed as well. So it's not physical violence in terms of blunt force trauma, etc., but it is a form of violence where that can lead to blunt force trauma, for example, or blunt force violence, if certain, and it has happened, if certain people become aware of the information that is put out there, the private information that is put out there. In the context of women and girls, there's a lot of shaming that is done online. There is a lot of posting that is done online that results in community ostracization, online sort of resulting in online attacks of the persons whose information has been disclosed.
So you
And
get
so,
abuse from like other third
right,
parties.
from other areas. So the information is put online, and that opens up sort of a floodgates for the individual whose information has been released to be abused or to be harassed or to be stigmatized or discriminated against.
Yeah, thanks for setting that context for us. We have seen an increase in these kinds of instances. I know we've had at least one high profile or two, and I think there was one this year as well. High profile revenge porn cases here in Jamaica.
Yeah.
But I know that they haven't been handled really criminally as yet, mostly on the civil end. But you did some research for Jamaicans for Justice around the unauthorized disclosure of HIV status. What are the particular harms that come with that form of kind of quote unquote digital violence?
So what we find with digital violence, like I said, when this private information becomes public, there is the distress of the person, whether or not other people or whether or not they actually receive threats, etc. There is still the emotional distress of having your private information revealed. There are also instances where people become aware of your private information and start to treat you differently. Your job is affected, their jobs can be affected, your social groups are affected. We saw in the research where persons had to leave their original communities and move away because it was no longer safe for them to live in the communities that they lived in. In particular, when it came to women and girls, we saw where they were disproportionately the groups of people whose information was released. And there's a particular violence that is targeted toward women and girls in the sense that they're often blamed for their for in the first instance the HIV that they contracted,
Right.
and they are labeled as sort of a pariah. Oh, this person is going to now cause spreading in our communities, and so there's ostracization. There is economic impacts as well. Persons might lose their jobs or be demoted. There are instances where employers have become aware of persons' HIV status and have either demoted individuals or just terminated them entirely.
Some of the times when we talk about this topic, our listeners are shocked that HIV stigma is still so prevalent. What was the data showing you? Is it still such an issue that we need to be so concerned when your status becomes public knowledge?
Yeah, well, what the data shows is that there was a period in time where HIV stigma was on a decline. And that coincides with the period of time where there was a lot of public education around HIV to destigmatize the virus, etc. But what the data show and what persons in the HIV sector have indicated is that more recently, with the decrease in the amount of HIV public education, it's almost as if the discrimination is on the rise again. Um, Calling for a need of continued public education. I think we have gotten to a place with HIV education where persons um, sort of felt like, okay, we had it covered, but the data is showing that that is not so. And with the rise in the internet access and access in general, especially when people are in conflict with each other, they use people's private information to sort of humble them and disclose their information as part of the conflict.
You know, I'm seeing a comment here that a listener is saying they hope the courts will hold more people to account who believe they have the right to threaten others and leak their private information and spread lies online. Those are kind of three different things: threatening, leaking private information, spreading lies online. And you know, as we think about our legislative framework, what exists? Can we go to the courts about these issues, and where are the gaps?
So it's sort of tricky, right? Because in the first place, going to the courts, there are mechanisms, yes, but they are somewhat limited. And I'll say why. While the Constitution guarantees us a right to privacy, and persons can certainly go to the courts to say my right to privacy has been breached. And there's also the Cyber Crimes Act as well. Section 9 of the Cyber Crimes Act also provides that persons who disclose information online can be subject to criminal offenses. So that's a very clear-cut avenue that people can use. And in terms of criminal proceedings and in terms of private proceedings, there's the constitutional right to privacy. The challenge with the constitutional right to privacy is, one, it may be very expensive for persons to assert their rights in the constitutional court, which can be discouraging some persons. There's also the fact that individuals, the constitutional court is a very complex place to assert your rights, right? And so persons might be discouraged by that. And I think the challenge with the legislative framework right now is that there isn't anything very clear cut in terms of, outside of the Cyber Crimes Act, that explicitly prohibits disclosure of your HIV status. I know we have the Data Protection Act right now that also offers some protection, but it still doesn't protect an individual against another individual. It protects an individual against a data collector or a data controller leaking their information, but it doesn't protect against another individual releasing your information. So it's sort of a legal minefield in asserting this right. It can be done. It can be done, but it's a matter of the resources that are available to the people. And there are instances where, well, in the first place, in relation to the Cyber Crimes Act, it's up to the police to determine, first of all, if they will press charges. And there are instances where they will refuse to do so if they do not believe that the breach was
within
in
the
the context of Section 9 of the Act, which says that it has to be threatening and malicious.
Okay. So thanks for that, Nastasia. We're going to take a quick break. I'm just going to ask you to stay with us because I do have one more question for you before we wrap up.
Sure.
This is a public service announcement from JPS. JPS is urging customers not to pay anyone to have their electricity service reconnected. Customers are reminded that unauthorized reconnections can be extremely dangerous and can result in serious injury, electrocution, or damage to property. This practice is unethical, illegal, and could delay restoration efforts. If anyone claiming to represent JPS requests payment for reconnection services, report it immediately to the nearest police station or JPS. JPS thanks all customers for their patience as teams continue working to restore power safely and as quickly as possible. That was a public service announcement from JPS.
Are you ready to turn your sales and marketing skills into high earnings? Nationwide 90 FM is searching for business development executives to help us grow our business and build lasting client relationships. If you have experience across all stages of the sales cycle and possess strong communication, negotiation, and time management skills with a proven sales track record, this opportunity is perfect for you. Join our team and work with the top corporate brands, media agencies, and of course, our on-air personalities. Enjoy networking opportunities, professional growth, and competitive commissions. Ready to take the next step? Send your resume to hr@nationwidenewsnetwork.com today.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. So we've been discussing International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and the major topic, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. And we have been joined by Nastasia Robinson, attorney at law. Nastasia, I had one final question for you on this topic, and it was one of our listeners was asking why the specificity of the gender. Is this not a general problem that affects men as well? So I just wanted you to give your... I know you kind of answered it in what you were saying before, but just to clarify for this listener why we would have focused on women and girls on this topic.
Sure. Thank you, Jade. Well, what the data shows is that while there are instances where men's statuses are disclosed as well, and they do have significant impacts, the likelihood of the disclosure being related to women and girls is much higher. As with many things that have a gendered lens, women and girls are unfairly targeted when it comes to disclosure online, in the sense that what the data showed rather is that, for example, when they go to the hospital, in terms of when they're pregnant, when they are breastfeeding, so they get shamed in terms of being young girls, in terms of being young mothers, in terms of being mothers, in terms of being sexually active women. There is a sort of blame that is put on women, almost as if the virus is because of women. So even where a man is involved in the situation and both individuals have HIV, the data shows that the woman is treated more unfairly than the men, or tend to be treated more unfairly with the men than the men, and that society tends to be harsher in terms of how they treat women in these circumstances rather than how they treat men.
Thanks for clarifying that for us. I always like to tell persons it's not that men are not affected by any of the issues that we talk about. We talk about gender-based violence. That's why it's gender-based.
Right.
But we do see, and it's data-driven, that disproportionate effect on women and girls. So thank you so much, Nastasia, for making the time to talk to us about this today, and observing IDVA with us. That was Nastasia Robinson, attorney at law, who was discussing with us International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. All right, so we're switching gears again. It's been a full gear shifting show, but we are in the final gear shift now, and I am currently joined in studio by my colleague, Outreach and Engagement Officer, Miss Kimberly Wilby. And we will be talking now about the Run for Rights. So, Kimberly, I'm waiting on my technician to show you on screen. But yes, Kimberly, I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'm not going to let you lead me out here, right? So, we're talking about Run for Rights. What is this Run for Rights thing? Can you come a bit closer to your microphone?
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now? Good. All right. So, Run for Rights is a 5K run walk that is a major fundraising activity for the Jamaicans for justice. So a lot of people, they will see us out there in the media landscape, and they see that we're quite verbose, we're quite active. But what a lot of people don't understand is that we do this with grant funding and also with donations.
Mm-hmm.
And so Run for Rights was birthed as a means of generating income that will help to support our advocacy efforts for the citizenry that we serve. And as such, we're here with the second staging that will be held this Sunday. I know you say you're not going to lead, but shameless plug. This Sunday, November 30, at the Police Officers Club.
Okay, so what time should we get there? November 30, this Sunday, what time should we be there?
This Sunday, people come out early. All right, so I'm an early bird. So we have warm up, because we're not going to send people out there to run and walk without doing the warm up. You have to do your stretches and things of that nature. So we have warm up that starts at 6 a.m. and then the run walk starts officially at 6:30 a.m.
What about those of us who have not yet registered? I am not one of them. But for those of us who have not yet registered, how can we do so? Is there still time to register?
Yes, there's still time. Registration actually closes this Friday, the 28th, so people, you have time. You can register online. That's by going on myraceresult.com/355144. That's myraceresult.com/355144.
Well, my dot race result.
Yes, my dot race result.
Yes.
.com. Yes, so my.raceresult.com /355144.
What's the cost?
The cost is really cheap.
What's that now?
And when I say really cheap, listen to me, I'm super surprised when I heard about the cost myself. I had to stop and check, say, I wonder if they're right. I wonder if they get the accounting part right. It's $2,500. $2,500 for a worthy cause. And then we have some lovely shirts. And I can tell you, I have seen them. I've taken a peek here or there. Real nice quality shirts, and that's $1,000. So for $3,500, you can come and participate in this monumental kind of activity.
So I know you said the funds go towards the support of the organization's work. We provide free legal services, so it goes towards that as well.
Yes.
But I know that we have also been doing some other kind of support work in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa there. How does the run come in where that's concerned?
All right. So part proceeds from the run walk this year will go towards the Hurricane Melissa recovery efforts. We also welcome persons, you might not be able to participate in the race to run or walk, but we encourage you to drop off your donations, sanitary items, things of that nature, the toilet paper, things like that, canned goods, new or gently used clothing, emphasis on the new part. We encourage persons to drop them off at either at JFJ headquarters, which is at 2 Fagan Avenue in Grants Bend, or they can make the drop-offs at the event on Sunday. We are also welcoming persons to partner with us, all the corporate entities, individuals. The Christmas season is coming on, and right now you have a lot of the adults who are they're more tasked with the whole um, activity of recovery, but we want to still ensure that we take care of the little ones and try to bring them Christmas cheer. So we are welcoming persons or entities to make donations for to assist us with bringing Christmas cheer to the children that have been affected in the western parishes.
Thanks for that, Kimberly. For those who are interested in making those donations, you can go to our Instagram page at JA4Justice. We do have a post up that includes banking information, it includes the location for donations, and it also includes the priority donation items for those members and clients of JFJ who have been affected by the hurricane, those items that they need the most. Yes. So you can consult that Instagram post for that specific information. Now, I know you said you're inviting corporate entities to come and support us. Do we already have some support? I know we have a few sponsors for this run.
Certainly. But before I touch on the sponsors, let me just put a quick reminder out there, because right before I came in to do this one-on-one with you, I got a message from someone asking when it is that they can collect the race day packages. So, just to advise persons that once we have registered, and you've done your proof of payment, all of those housekeeping matters, race day packages can be collected at our head office at 2 Fagan Avenue between Wednesday, November 26th to Saturday, November 29th. And we will be ready and waiting for you from the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We will be there to distribute the race day packages. Now, this event would not be possible without our sponsors. We are actually here in the lovely studios of one of our major sponsors. Big up Team Nationwide.
Yes, indeed.
National, Tasty,
Starlight
Productions, yes.
Kingston High
Ridge, Elko.
Caribbean Dreams.
Lee's
Food Fair.
Yes, man.
Yeah,
Call them up.
Fresh Approach.
Call them up.
And their subsidiary brands.
Yes. Jamaica Power Company.
The National Housing Trust. Terra Nova. And Mothers.
And Royal Trophies.
So thank you so much for supporting us this year for our second staging of Run for Rights. Again, if you are not yet registered, the registration link is my.raceresult.com/355144. The cost is $2,500.
Yes.
Registration closes on Friday, so be sure to register before that. And pickup starts this Wednesday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on each day. Sorry, Wednesday to Saturday. From 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on each day. So we'll see you this Sunday at Police Officers Club at 6 a.m. for warm up.
Everybody warm up, and we will be just to insert this right here too. I forgot two of our partners to G-Jam Hotel, all the way in Portland, but they still, they're still committed to the cause and committed to supporting us. And last but certainly not least, with Cinco, with the two brands, Water and Powerade. So people, come out. The sponsors are there. We are here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us this week. The winner for today's trivia question was news commentator. The question was, when did the Disabilities Act come into force? The answer was February 14, 2022. News commentator did pass on her prize to another commenter in the chat, so I'll ask my producer to ensure that person gets the prize. But for that person, you can reach out to 239-7583 to ensure that you receive your prize. So thanks again for joining me. My name is Jade Williams. This was Let's Start Justice, and we'll see you next week.
Justice for all. under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
We know it's difficult, but don't lose hope. Jamaicans are a strong people with an unbreakable spirit. We will rise again. The time by the office of the Prime Minister is
2:01 p.m.
They've lost homes.
Everything is gone. Have no house, have nothing.
They've lost power.
No water, no food, no light.